Jay, that's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
Dave Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the only football podcast tonight. Trevor Lawrence got paid, baby. Trevor Lawrence got paid. He is now tied with Joe Burrow for the highest paid player in the NFL. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to finally get into the State of the Union of the AFC West, as well as pick or predict who we think is going to win that division. And then, of course, we're going to end it all off with the Chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football. Football
is America. And if you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass.
For the moment in time, I don't give a damn.
Oh my God!
No!
You love this.
30 to 27.
No!
Chiefs win. Chiefs
No!
win 30 to 20.
Woo!
Duval County, you got yourself a quarterback, and I want to go through this journey really quick with you. I grew up in Jacksonville. I moved there when I was 8, and I've been to more Jacksonville games than any other team. And I've told this story once where me and my mom were eating at a Mexican restaurant, and it was Thursday night, and we just randomly went to a Thursday night football game against the Chargers. And it was one of those just great like parent bonding moments. And one of the things I remember her saying when the Chargers were winning that game was, I can tell that the people really want to like the Jaguars, but the Jags are just not giving anything back. You do have a season sprinkled in with David Garrard where they beat the Steelers. I remember I was bowling when that game happened. Yep. But for the most part, the Jags were just a very underwhelming team. And let's be real, David Garrard, Byron Leftwich, even the good quarterbacks that they've had, they haven't really had that guy since Mark Brunell. And it's been a long 25 years since that's happened. And then in comes Trevor Lawrence, this kid out of Clemson that is winning every single football game, a can't miss prospect, one of the guys that is compared to Peyton Manning. And the Jaguars finally find themselves in a position with the draft pick to get their guy that will change everything about the Jaguars. And for those that may be critical in this moment, now we could go back and forth on the contract if it's worth it. The fact of the matter is Trevor Lawrence doesn't get this money from here. He gets it from someone else. And the Jaguars know very much what it's like to not have a quarterback. And I don't think they're interested in going down that road. And I could say this as well. For the people that say that Trevor Lawrence shouldn't have got this contract, keep in mind that since Trevor Lawrence has taken over for the Jaguars have had more optimism and reasons to be happy and reasons to sell tickets than they've had in my entire lifetime. They actually are a legitimate contender to make a push in the AFC because of Trevor Lawrence. And is it good if he can't get over the hump? Doug Peterson might go. There might be some things like that. His first year, we just kind of throw it away. Urban Meyer, it was a disaster. Tim Tebow was on the team. Like, none of it made sense. And yeah, and then that second year, it was like Trevor Lawrence, there he is. And he went, head to head with Mahomes and almost won that playoff game. His team really let him down. And then last year, he hurt his ankle, and let's just face it, like, maybe the Jags would have been better if he didn't play the last 4 or 5 games. I think they lost 6 in a row to end the season, something like that. But don't get it twisted. The Jaguars are in a position, franchise-wise, since they drafted Trevor Lawrence, that they haven't been in my entire lifetime. And I could tell you that that's really all that matters about this game. Is feeling like you really have a chance, and knowing that you have at least a top 7 quarterback in the league. You can live with that every single year, whether he's overpaid or not. I don't think so, because the market only goes one way. It goes up, and it was Trevor Lawrence's turn. So congratulations to Trevor Lawrence. The guy is going to have as much money as he wants to spend at Waffle House. He probably go celebrate at Waffle House tonight. But it's an exciting thing, I think, for football fans to see anybody get a record amount of money. It's always been something that's exciting, even if you're not a fan. Like when the Guinness World Records, remember those books that they used to have, the Guinness World Record books?
Yeah.
And I remember Michael Vick was in it for signing $100 million contract. And it was the biggest contract of all time. And it's fascinating to see these ridiculous extensions that are just like monopoly money. It's hard to fathom $55 million for 16 games. But that's what he's going to get. It's going to be a league-leading contract. It's matching Joe Burrow in total value and average annual salary. You could make an argument that Joe Burrow has had more success than Trevor Lawrence, but I think when it's all said and done, I wouldn't like bet on Burrow being better than Trevor Lawrence right now. It's been a better start.
What? That's a crazy statement.
I just really feel that from what I've seen from Trevor Lawrence, I think he's the closest thing that the league has seen to what Peyton Manning was for the Colts. And Peyton Manning had Tom Brady, and Tom Brady always was getting the upper hand of Peyton Manning until he became a Bronco, and then we own the Patriots. But not to make it about the Broncos, I do think Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, you got yourself, you could call it a Drew Brees. I mean, this is the new era of football, and Trevor Lawrence is on that big 5.
All right. You started off great. I just want to say that you started off awesome, and then you ended with that. And that to me is ridiculous. I got to say, he's had 3 seasons, right? Like let me get to the contract first. Congrats to Trevor Lawrence. And honestly, you said it correctly. And we talked about it maybe a couple weeks ago or last week, something. What else were the Jaguars going to do? What other options are there? And this isn't to belittle Trevor Lawrence, because they are paying him for his 2022 season. The season in which he had single-digit interceptions, 25 touchdowns. He had, what was it? How much were the yards here? Over 4,100 yards passing. That's what they're paying him for. That is the Trevor Lawrence they know they've got, right?
Last year he had that?
No. That was 2022. Last year he had just over 4,000, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions.
That was a bad year, and he still had more yards than a Bears quarterback has ever.
He did.
Until this year. Caleb Williams is going to change that.
You're goddamn right. So what I will say is, like, yeah, what else are the Jags going to do other than pay this guy? Does he deserve it for those 3 years that he's played in the Jaguars? I don't know if he deserves to be tied with Joe Burrow as the highest player, or tied with anybody to be the highest paid player in the NFL. I don't think he deserves that. Do I think he deserves an extension for the Jaguars? Absolutely. What did he do in 2022? He gave the Jaguars something to fucking cheer about and something to be excited about. But again, does he deserve the contract? No, I really don't think so.
Well, I
But
just want to say he's not getting paid for what he's done up to this point. This is an investment. He's still getting paid he's still benefiting from the prospect that he was coming out of college. And look,
sure,
we did
yeah,
see, I mean, I saw him come back for 28 points, not even in the playoff game. Like I've seen him go toe to toe with Dak Prescott's offense. Like we've seen enough if you're watching those games to be like, okay, well, if we can get that version of Trevor Lawrence, which I don't see any reason to believe that you won't, then yeah, that's a player that's gonna take the league by storm. But it hasn't happened yet. His first year, we throw it away. Last year, injuries, just like Joe Burrow's dealt with 2 years worth of injuries in his 4 seasons.
yeah.
But this is an investment. I mean, this is the part of the business that people forget about. It's not necessarily, is he worth that money today? No. Is he as valuable as Patrick Mahomes is? Well, nobody's as valuable as Patrick Mahomes. But
Yeah.
the point is like it's about the future, and it's about the direction that people, including the Jaguars front office, believes that Trevor Lawrence he's gonna lead him to the promised land. That's what they believe. That's why they're paying him to do it.
And that I totally get, because again, this is why the Bengals paid Joe Burrow. This is why the Chiefs pay Patrick Mahomes to continue to win Super Bowls, to continue to be in the MVP conversation, to continue to get the Kansas City Chiefs deep into the playoffs. And that's fine. Again, I don't think that he deserves the top dollar. But if you are the Jaguars organization and this is what you're paying for, is the future, what you believe he is going to become, again, you had no better options than to pay this guy who has plenty of hype, and there's a reason for it too. So I totally agree with that. Like, I totally agree why they paid him. And like you said, the market only goes up. They're not going to pay him. They're not going to pay him $30 million a year. He's going to be like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe not, and then they're going to be like, oh, scrambling. What are we going to do? Right. So totally.
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah. Gardner Minshew. Hey, come back, Gardner. Let's get them fucking jean shorts over here. As far as like the Peyton comparisons, I would be a little apprehensive about doing that so far. At the end of this extension, if he has, taken the Jaguars into the playoffs quite a few times, and maybe hasn't won a Super Bowl, but that he is your franchise guy. I mean, it took Peyton 8 years to win a Super Bowl, something like that. You rarely see that anymore about teams keeping their quarterbacks, unless you're Josh Allen, keeping their quarterbacks without any Super Bowl success within like the first 5 years. It's tough to come by a quarterback that you're willing to be like, okay, we can wait. Let's pay him, but we can wait.
Right. And I think in those situations, it's not if you watch the guy play, you see it. I mean, if you just YouTube Trevor Lawrence's top plays from whatever year, pick one, you're going to see what everyone else saw. Like, it's not a mistake that he's getting paid this much money. Like you said, he has to break the market. That's the way it goes. Like, is CD Lamb worth more money than Justin Jefferson?
CD Lamb? Probably not right now. But when he gets paid, guess who's going to be the highest paid receiver in the league? Exactly.
And that's the way it goes. And that's why a lot of times the quarterbacks aren't lying when they say, I trust the deal's going to get done. I'm not worried about it, because the longer it takes, the more money in the bank is going to break.
Yeah.
I was trying to rhyme there, but
hey, A for effort.
Trevor Lawrence, if you're watching him play and you see what you see in him, the same thing you saw in college, where you have a player that high IQ, great arm power, extremely accurate, just a very good quarterback, very, very good quarterback. It's like, you're not going to be like, Manning hasn't won a playoff game. You know, we're gonna pay him. It's like even when Manning was getting his ass kicked by Brady every year, we were like, we had true debates about if Manning was better than Brady. That was a real conversation that happened often. And it was more about Tom Brady benefiting from a better team and better coaching and a better defense. And Manning was the guy that was scoring 40 points a game and kind of carrying the team on his back. And that's what Manning people will say is like, it doesn't matter that he lost to him. Tom Brady was in a better situation. I think right now, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, are these guys that are really good that are around him right now? I mean, ETN is good. I mean, their names, you know their names, but we could have done that with the Broncos. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KD. But like, who's that guy on the offense that is responsible for the Jags getting into the playoffs and winning a playoff game and coming back and hosting a playoff game and winning a division? Like, what changed about the Jaguars? Trevor Lawrence, yeah. He is the factor, the X factor of why the Jaguars have gone in another direction. And if you have to pay him top dollar to keep that, then it's what you have to do. I think if the Jags didn't do that, of course someone else would, and that would be a really, really bad situation if Trevor Lawrence goes to another team and spends the next 15 years with them, becoming a Hall of Famer, which I think he will when it's said and done. And you were the team that was trying to save $7 million a year. You know?
Yeah, and look, the quarterback, like you said, like these guys know how valuable they are. They know how valuable a quarterback is. On the other side, the ownership knows that this league caters to quarterbacks. The fact that, you know, it seemed like a record number of quarterbacks got injured last year, whatever it was, it's like, what's going on here, right? Because that's not what you're used to anymore. You are used to getting hit as a quarterback and there being a flag for some reason, right? Like this is just the direction that the NFL is going. So these guys know exactly how valuable they are, how like difficult it is to draft the guy in his rookie season, be like, this is our guy right here. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult to just guess on these guys because that's all it is. It's a crapshoot. I know that, you know that, everybody in the NFL knows that. We can all base things off of hype in college, which I'm doing with Caleb Williams, and hoping that it translates into the NFL. So they know exactly what position they're in to make the money they're making. His rookie season, we talk about fucking Stinky Fingers head coach and just the situation he was walking into.
Awful.
And for the most part, first overall picks, quarterbacks going into teams, those are similar situations you're walking into. You're not walking into a complete team.
For sure. Remember, Urban Meyer was benching the best players on the team. And there were players walking around like, why is this guy not in the game? And then Urban Meyer would be like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Or he would bench.
Yeah, he was just
personality. Like he
was fucking checked out.
He had like 4th, 5th string in just because he didn't get along with their star. You know, I mean, it was an all-time terrible head coaching gig.
And luckily, you know, the following season, Amir Khan or whatever the owner's name is for the Jaguars,
Shad Khan.
Okay, Shad Khan. Luckily, Trevor Lawrence was like, okay, we have a Super Bowl winning head coach here, and we've got a much better situation. Okay, let me play like I'm supposed to be playing. And he played like he did. And the injuries last year, of course, again, all that. And I'm not saying, again, that they shouldn't pay this guy because, again, the market only goes up and quarterbacks are not a dime a dozen at all. You have to be able to look at a guy, evaluate a guy, and be like, this is our guy. And that's exactly what they did. Again, the market only goes up, but I just have a hard time thinking of Trevor Lawrence as getting paid as high as Joe Burrow, who's already been to a Super Bowl, for example, right? Or a guy
I agree with that. I know what you mean. I do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people probably feel that way. Now, his rookie season, I might be one of the only people that throw that away completely. Like, I don't even use that to judge Trevor Lawrence. Like,
it's difficult for any rookie quarterback, really.
Yeah, but some rookie like Caleb Williams, he's going to be in a really good situation this year.
Yeah.
There's just levels to this. And Urban
Mhm.
Meyer was historically one of the
Just
worst head coaching hires
dog
ever.
shit.
Dude got fired. He was the fastest fired head coach in the NFL ever. I think it was
Yeah, he
week
was dog
9.
shit. He was dog shit. Yeah.
But in his sophomore season, and that's the season where it was like, okay, this is Trevor Lawrence's real first season.
Mhm.
In the final quarterback index from the NFL in his sophomore season, Lawrence finalized at number 5 overall behind only Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert, which is what landed him in that elite territory and why he was viewed like people by me as a top 5 quarterback
Mhm.
was because the game doesn't lie. If you watch the game, you see how special he is, and it's really not lost on that many people besides maybe people that aren't watching because the Jags choked. So it's also a weird timing. If Trevor Lawrence would have gotten this deal last year after winning a playoff game, people would be like, oh yeah, the Jags are a Super Bowl contender this year. But
Mhm.
because it happened after an injury and a 6-game losing streak, there's going to be a little bit of noise, otherwise wouldn't be there if it happened last year. But the thinking is that Trevor Lawrence is going to continue to evolve and he will be a top 5 quarterback, and the Jags probably, if you're a fan of the Jags, you probably believe you have a top 3 quarterback, but I think top 5 is more realistic.
The one thing he does need to work on, which has been kind of like a topic around him, is just his giveaways, his turnovers. He has, I think, in 3 seasons, 72 turnovers, total turnovers, fumbles, and interceptions. That's the one thing. That's kind of like the
Achilles heel.
Achilles heel. Yeah, exactly. That he needs to work on like 100%, right? Other
Only
than
8
that,
picks, though.
it's not a bad idea. What's that?
Only 8 picks, though. His sophomore season, only 8 interceptions.
Yeah, but still 12 fumbles that same year,
Yeah, the
where he
fumbles
was like,
is the issue.
yeah, so like fumbles seem to be the issue from his like rookie season, even into just last year with the injuries. Like we're talking double digits for 2 years in a row. Like he needs to be able to protect the ball, which again is his biggest criticism, I think, as of yet in his career, is holding on to that ball. Again, congrats to him and congrats to Jags, because the Jags seem to be like, hey, we have our guy. We feel comfortable enough to give him this 5-year extension, which I think will run him through. He's going into his 4th year, so I'm assuming they picked up his option. But
Well,
I don't know. Does the 5 years go into the option or no?
Yeah, because it's extension.
Okay, so technically it's a 9 years total that he will be with the Jags.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I mean, for quarterbacks for the Jags that have thrown 1,000 passes or more, he's already the number 1 quarterback with a 63.8 completion percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And through 4 seasons, Lawrence has started 50 of a possible 51 regular season games. Durability.
Wow.
He didn't miss any playing time until a variety of injuries at the same time last year in week 17. And that's when they sat him week 17 against the Panthers and they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another thing where you really see how that when Manning was out that year, the Colts went 1-15. There's something about losing to the Panthers week 17 without Lawrence, where it's like, oh, this could be really bad if we didn't have this guy. But right now on Jaguars all-time passing yards, Lawrence is already 4th in all-time passing completions. He's 4th. He's 4th on passing touchdowns with 58. Like he's already top 5 for the Jags, and he's going into his 4th season. He's definitely, when it's all said and done, Trevor Lawrence will be the all-time leader of everything Jaguars related, and that's why he's getting paid like that.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same exact thing, because hit 11,770 pass yards already. And where is it? Those yards are the 5th most in NFL history by a player after only 3 seasons. So not only is he going to be breaking records for the Jaguars franchise, but he's already 5th all time in 3 seasons as an NFL quarterback. Like that's amazing. So
didn't know
the
that. Wow.
things, that even someone like me who is a little critical about why he's getting paid so much, these are the things that you're paying Trevor Lawrence for. Even in a down year, he still managed to throw for over 4,000 yards and become a top 5 passer all time for the first 3 years in the NFL, which is just impressive as fuck. So could you imagine if he was healthy last year and he wasn't, playing with injuries? Like, he'd probably be 4th or 3rd right now in pass yards for the first 3 seasons for a player. So it's impressive. And this is exactly what the Jaguars are paying for.
It's also different when you have a quarterback, like, for instance, let's say Caleb Williams really, let's say that he works out. Let's say he gets the exact same start that Trevor Lawrence did. Okay. That would be viewed differently than if, let's say, Bo Nix and Caleb Williams have the exact same season. By the end of the year, there's going to be more people saying to pay Bo Nix than there would be saying Caleb Williams, because when your hype is so high,
you got to outperform.
There's only really one way to go. I mean, it's either Super Bowls or a disappointment.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams have that in common, where I'd say the odds were stacked against Trevor Lawrence to get this payday just because of what the expectations were. But I just feel like everybody that's watching this hasn't really given up any hope of what they thought he was going to be and what they thought he was going to bring to Jacksonville. I don't think there's anybody. I haven't met a single Jaguar fan that's like, I'm off the Trevor Lawrence train. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, if you're like an NFL person, someone who follows it like we do and knows all, like, everything about the inner workings of what's going on, this, no matter what the dollar amount is still a good deal, because like we've been talking about, after last season, we know what the injuries were. We know what that team was kind of leading into. We know Calvin Ridley wouldn't show up. We know that defense for the latter half of the season was pretty much absent from all the games. So we know the injuries and all those things piling up. Again, they are not a reflection on Trevor Lawrence. They are paying him for his second year and for what he's done in the history of the NFL. So if you know ball like we know ball, you know that this deal had to get done for the Jaguars, especially on the Jaguars side.
I kind of hoped it wouldn't get done so he could come to Denver. That's another way to tell how you really feel about a quarterback, is you imagine them being on your team and ask yourself, how do you feel?
Kyle already doesn't want Bo Nix.
Well, not if Trevor Lawrence is on the table. I'm just saying, like, if Trevor Lawrence, if I could push a button and that would be my quarterback, I would feel, because it's one thing to have a really good quarterback like Manning when he's got 4 years left, but to get one of these guys when they're in their 3rd season, that's like, wow, my 30s are going to be awesome. That's not like a small window. It's like, if Caleb Williams works out for you, it's like you're gonna see a lot of Bears winning until you're like 50. That's how long that guarantees. Because he's already talked about how long he wants to play and what he wants to do. That's why I would be really excited about it, is because it's one thing to have a great one. It's another one to have one of the great ones that are not even 25 years old.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And honestly, I'd probably be feeling the same exact way. It's like, wait, Trevor Lawrence is available? Hold up. Hey, yo, Bears, let's do something about that, right? So
right. Well, all right. We are going to be doing the State of the Union, and we're going to start with my AFC West. They are personally mine. I own the entire AFC West. Peyton Manning returns for another season, possibly his last. Last year, injuries were really difficult given his age and the slow start to the 2014 season. And Brock Osweiler is still on the roster here. Oh, wait a minute. This is 10 years ago. Okay, got it. Broncos have drafted Bo Nix. He is going to solve the problem that we have been trying to solve since that article was written 10 years ago. And do you want to go one team at a time, or do you want to fly through the positions of each team?
No, let's do one team at a time. I was gonna do let's do one team at a time, and And yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay.
We'll do Broncos.
So Sean Payton
Mm-hmm.
made a comment today, and I was so stoked about it that I wanted to share it with you because it was something that was a little, and I'm going to preface this with Sean Payton gets hired. He comes to Denver and he did not pick that team. He was hired to fix that team. And we all understand that he couldn't. I mean, he fixed Russ respectively in 15,
somewhat, yeah.
30. I mean, it was something. It was better than before him, and Denver had a chance to make a postseason push, and he didn't even like this team. This was not his team. So I feel overall that what the Broncos were last year and what they are this year is a totally different vibe. And I rarely get really, really excited to hear things, but I want to show you, this is from this was yesterday. The end of the team's offseason program. It's over. And this is what Sean had to say about it. And I was shaking my feet. I was so happy.
Let's see.
This is just the kind of stuff as a fan. It's important that you watch this kind of stuff because this is what it's all about right here.
Announcement obviously will affect everyone here. So this will be our last day. These guys will be they'll be leaving this afternoon tomorrow. We won't have a practice tomorrow. Felt like we really had a good off-season program, and obviously the key for all of these guys is the 5.5 weeks they're away of maintaining kind of their conditioning level, and so. There'll be a few guys that stay here, obviously rehabbing injuries, but overall, I thought it went well. So, any questions?
Sean, was canceling tomorrow part of the plan all along?
No, that was. Look, real quick, just historically, prior to day, and then this, we measure it now, catapult spots, and so, it was different. It felt different this year.
Right here,
the miles. We have good competition. Obviously, on all the numbers, all the metrics that we track, you can kind of see it. We measure it now, catapult. And you see the distance. I won't bore you. The miles per hour, all that stuff, and then the attendance. But I'd say the competition, kind of sharpens things. We have it in a lot of spots, and so, it was different. It felt different this year, and in a good way.
All right, and you could get more into that if you want, but what I did notice from it, and I might have fast forwarded a little too far. I got impatient. I got worried that you guys I was gonna lose you. But what I was fast forwarding was he's like, we had a really good offseason, and they follow up with, okay, why was it so good? And he goes into saying, like, we have all these analytics, how fast they're running down the field. He's basically saying our players are stronger, they're faster, they're better, the competition is better. And compared to last year, it feels entirely different. And if there's one thing I've learned about Sean is that he doesn't really say things that he doesn't mean. They asked him a lot of different ways last year to get him to talk like this about Russell Wilson, and he never did it. He just kind of looked angry and upset, very frustrated. He looks lighter. He seems happy. He seems like he is really excited about this year because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can tell a lot about a team. If you've been doing this as long as Peyton has, you get to a point where you can start recognizing what those teams had when you made those Super Bowl runs and what they looked like in the offseason. And from what he's saying, he's like, this is a group of guys right now that don't look like the worst team in the division. This looks like one of the teams that I've seen make these deep playoff pushes. The competition is very, very good in several spots on the team. And this team is ready to compete now. And we always talk about every year there's a team that we didn't expect to achieve, and they overachieve. And I think that this year, the Denver Broncos are going to be that team that really shocks people, especially in the AFC West. But I think that what they're seeing of Bo Nix, what Sean's seeing on the field, you draft a really good running back. Javonte Williams coming from year one from his injury. You know, these injuries, it's year two that they really start going.
Yeah.
So you get Audric Estime, you got Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin reportedly shows up at like 4 a.m. and is the last one to leave. He wants to get better, especially in pass protection. Cortland Sutton has returned to camp. He's not missing any more camp.
There we go.
Tim Patrick is healthy. Josh Reynolds is on the team. They drafted Orlando Franklin. Or that's not his name. Is it Orlando Franklin?
No,
Franklin.
Something Franklin.
Troy
Franklin.
Yeah, Troy Franklin. So you got a good receiving group. You feel good about Bo Nix. You got a good running game. One of I would say a top 7 offensive line in the league. Definitely the strongest positional group on the team is our offensive line. And then on defense, it looked like a lot of times Caden Stearns was an upgrade when he came in for Kareem Jackson. Now they're giving him the keys. They draft a cornerback to go opposite of Surtain. They lose Josie Jewell, but this has kind of been the plan for the last 2 years. That's why they drafted linebackers the last 2 drafts. I just don't see what about this team, and I've been saying this to all the Bronco fans I'm interviewing, is we've kind of given up. But I would argue that the future looks bright, and not only should we not give up, but we haven't even had as good of a reason as we have this year to believe that we're going to be better than we think. We haven't had more of a reason to believe that than we do this year. Why? This is Sean Payton's team. This is his team. I mean, everything. There was still sprinkles of what was, and now what is all hand selected. Every coaching staff, every player, everybody. This is Sean Payton's team, and it was going to take a couple years for it to get to this point, but we're here now, and he does believe in Bo Nix, and who knows? Maybe Zach Wilson. Maybe he can unlock something in Zach Wilson. People say, "Oh, I don't even want to think about that." It's like, wait a minute, why? Maybe if Zach Wilson starts, maybe that just shows how much he's improved. Maybe it doesn't mean that Bo Nix was bad. Maybe it means Zach Wilson got better. So I feel really good about the Denver Broncos. They're one of the teams. They have one of the teams roster wise that I can feel really good about going into this year. And the whole thing is just full trust in the head coach. And I'm one of those guys that is in Sean we trust. You know, and I don't see why you would think any differently. If you're judging him off of last season, it just doesn't seem quite fair, to be honest.
Yeah, and I would be in the same camp, I guess. I'm not going to judge him off last season because similar to what we talked about Trevor Lawrence, it's like judging him off his rookie season and immediately after that season ended being like, oh, he's a bust. You know what I mean? I don't think that should be the case. And I'm going to join you in that hopefulness. I hope they are a better team. I just have a hard time thinking they're better than 8 wins, though. What I will say is I hope Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix are connecting awesomely during the season. I hope Tim Patrick is healthy. I hope him and Franklin have a good connection, even though, you know, they were in college, so they probably already have that. Obviously, getting to the NFL is a completely different animal and stuff, right? The departures are notable. Josie Jewell and who was it, Justin Simmons. They were getting a little bit older, so you can say that, hey, maybe it's not necessarily the biggest hit to our defense, because there were plenty of times. I mean, you guys went on a 5-game win streak where the defense was a huge factor in that. And then Jerry Jeudy, again, not necessarily like a huge loss. Yes, he's another, wide receiver you took early in the draft or in like the first couple rounds or so. So there's definitely some talent there. I don't think really much of a loss. You got Cortland Sutton, which is fine. Like, he is a wide receiver one. He's a 50-50 ball getter. He showed that he can make those tough catches last season. And you brought in Josh Reynolds too as a wide receiver. So really you got rid of Jerry Jeudy and you brought in an improvement at wide receiver, right? I think the defense, I don't know, try to talk me into the defense, because we saw that it was a lot of feast and famine, I would say, for the defense last year.
Well, I think the defense is going to be good. Like, you're right. They had the famous choke against the Dolphins, but when they went on their 5-game winning streak, it was the defense getting a ton of turnovers. They added Malcolm Roach on the defensive line. They added John Franklin Myers with the Jets. That's a huge upgrade too on the line. And Levi Wallace, and then Chris Abrams. That's the cornerback that they drafted. And you got Surtain, who's clearly the leader of this defense now. But not only that, he's truly the number one cornerback. You could say number two, but he's the guy. He is that guy. He has put enough seasons together where he is very reliable. He can press. He does it all. He gets interceptions. Quarterbacks don't even target receivers when he's on him. He shut people down like Travis Kelce, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, all of these guys.
Yeah, he's top 5 for sure.
He is absolutely so. Anytime you have that, that's really good. As far as the pass rush, Denver needed to get better along the pass rushing side of things. They just weren't getting after the quarterback, but they drafted the guy whose dad played for the Broncos. I'm blanking on his name. This was their first pick in the draft. He's a pass rush specialist. Where is it? Here it is. So not okay. Bo Nix was their first pick. Then it was Jonah Ellis. From what people are saying about Jonah Ellis, is he is one of the safest pass rushers in this draft. And from what George Payton said about when he went into detail about it, he said he was just too good to pass up on. And head coach Sean Payton explained that Jonah Ellis, if you look at his stats, you'll see why he has to be here. So I think you're going to get an immediate upgrade at the position there. Barrett Browning coming back. He dealt with injuries last season. Yeah, I think, and then Vance Joseph going into, you saw that team turn a page where it was like, I thought Vance Joseph would be fired after the Miami game. Then they started playing together, and it's now you're going into year 2 in that system, and you brought in depth pieces. You drafted somebody to put on the other side of Surtain. You're upgrading at safety. It almost looks like this team is upgraded everywhere. I don't see any. You could say quarterback, because we don't know if we're going to have somebody as good as Russell Wilson next year. But what we are missing with facts, we can replace with optimism. So you're not gonna really be too down about that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think the Broncos are going to be a competitive team this year. And keep in mind, when we're looking at this team all together, and here's some of the notes that I wrote down. Sean Payton's won 62% of his regular season games across his career. That's 10.54 wins per 17 games. So statistically, this guy averages over 10 wins a season. I don't think that that's an accident. So that's the norm. What's not the norm is him to go 7-9 or 8-9. That's not normal. Winning double-digit games is. The Broncos started 1-5 last season, and they still were 7-6 at one point late last year. It was like they turned a page, but it was really taking so much to get it done. Then you look at the Texans last year. They were the team that no one really cared about. They were a team that we said they could win 2-3 games last year. And what happened? They got CJ Stroud and everything just started working. There are people that feel like Bo Nix was the most pro-ready quarterback coming into the league based on the fact that he's 24 years old and he's been playing college football for 6 years. And then you have an improved roster and running back, wide receiver, defensive line, and cornerback. They've all improved. At quarterback, Bo Nix, I think, will be an upgrade over what Russell Wilson was last year. I think Audric Estime and Blake Watson went undrafted. I really like Blake Watson as a running back. I thought he was going to be drafted for sure. I think he's going to end up playing a major role. And then I mentioned John Franklin Myers and Malcolm Roach that they added along the defensive line. And at cornerback, they add depth pieces as well. So I think these are substantial improvements along the team. And more importantly, when I'm watching Sean Payton talk about the team, the guy that's boots on the ground's actually watching these guys. And I can see that he looks happy in light. He looks light. He looks like, man, I'm just really enjoying my job right now because I get to sit here and watch these guys go to work, and it's a beauty. And that's why he said watching Bo Nix is relaxing. I don't think that Sean's wrong about all of the things that he's feeling. And he did not feel this way last year. We didn't know that because he didn't say that. But now that we have contrast, we can see that he feels a way that he definitely wasn't feeling last year.
Yeah, so I will say that he does look to be a bit more relieved. And relieved why? Because he got rid of Russ Wilson. Let's be honest, right? I know you say that he didn't really say much last year, but when coming into the Broncos as the head coach, even like those first few weeks, he was like, yeah, he's saying that he has his own office and has his own trainer. Yeah, we don't do that around here. We don't do that around here. So you could tell kind of off the bat that him and Russ were seemingly going to have a not so great relationship. And you saw that on the field, yelling at Russ, kind of just like sitting him. Although I feel like that was a front office team decision type of thing, not necessarily just Sean Payton. But you're right. He does look a little bit better. He does look a little bit happier. And to be honest, that's kind of what you want in a coach coming into this season with the quarterback that he wanted to draft, a wide receiver one, a clear wide receiver one, some upgrades at wide receiver with Josh Reynolds. You bring in Troy Franklin, your quarterback's guy in college, a top of the line offensive line. And then you know, some improvements there on the defense too. So he's kind of liking, because if you're Sean Payton, you knew Courtland Sutton, he's a fucking star, absolutely a star. Patrick Surtain, a star. Now that you kind of come in and you are slowly but surely bringing in your own pieces and molding this team as you like, you start to get a little bit cheerier. Hey, we may be bringing in Vance Joseph, who led up 70 plus to the Dolphins, but you saw the improvements that he made almost like that. Within a week, it was like this defense is playing amazing. So you're hoping that the continuity with Vance Joseph going into this season and having an entire offseason with the guys he's had and the new guys coming in, it's like, okay, now we could kind of do this, right? Now we can kind of get rolling and build off of that. And real quick, we got Bill with a super chat for the swear jar, guys. Fuck, shit, fuck. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. So yeah, you're hoping that happens. I like that Sean Payton feels good. Again, the quarterback room, little iffy. If Zach Wilson works out better, cool. And especially if Bo Nix is working out his first year and is looking at least decent, you know, doesn't matter really about his touchdowns interception rate. I don't think. I mean, I think as long as he's like grasping the playbook as well as he can as a rookie and kind of getting wins when he can, reading the right people, making sure he's making the passes on time, you can absolutely build off that. You know, you look at teams like this and you liken them to, for example, what Ryan Poles did his first year, traded everybody and was like, we are going to get slimmer, faster at the offensive line. We are going to do this. We're going to do that. You saw what the Kansas City Chiefs were 8 years ago and how they started to put their stamp on their team, right? the Bills before Josh Allen. We're going to bring in Josh Allen. He's not a polished product. Let's bring him a wide receiver 1. Bam. All of a sudden, Josh Allen is like an MVP. He is an immediate Super Bowl contender. All these things start to happen when you are finally able to mold a team how you want using the draft, using trades. Again, the biggest downside, right, I think right now to the Broncos are Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and to an extent, Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. Again, I don't think I should say the Broncos are better than 8 wins, but if Sean Payton is feeling himself and is able to unlock some of these guys, there's no reason not to believe they can be in contention like they were last year for the division later into the season. A lot of people forget that the Denver Broncos during their win streak were like a game behind the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So second year head coach, second year defense, it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's lost on everybody. I mean, and it doesn't seem that hard for me to get behind. Like, they win 8 games last year with a team that Sean didn't even like that much, and a quarterback that he could not get along with.
Mm-hmm.
You have an improved roster this year, but don't forget, this team didn't win 3 or 4 games last year. They won 8.
Yeah.
So I've been telling all the Bronco people I interview, I'm like, if you're wondering what Sean Payton's floor is, we already saw it. And even in that season, we were still playing for the playoffs on Christmas Day. So the Chiefs were also only 2 games ahead in late December.
Yeah.
And because they won the Super Bowl, it's like the Chiefs are here and the Broncos are in the very bottom. And it's like, in reality, that regular season was like this.
Yeah.
And God forbid they would have started off a little bit better than 1-5. Maybe they could have actually had a chance to get in. I don't see a 1-5 start happening this year. I think that was a one-time thing. And just overall, I think they've turned a page, and I think it's going to be a lot better football coming out of Denver this year.
Yeah, because we look at their schedule, and we're going to take a quick look at their schedule here. Let's say, you said 1-5. Don't think it's going to happen. Their first 6 games are at Seattle.
Let me see if I can get it right. Seattle week 1.
Hold on. Let me bring it up. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Seattle week 1.
At
week
Seattle.
2 at Pittsburgh, at Seattle. Then home opener against Steelers.
Yep.
Week 3, they go to Tampa. Week 4, they play the Jets.
At New York, yep.
And then week 5, they play the Raiders at home.
Mm-hmm.
Week 6, they play the Panthers.
The Chargers. You're close.
The Chargers.
So,
yeah.
Okay. And out of those 6 games, I still think going into Seattle is going to be a tough one. I really, really do, just because of again, what's that?
Dub.
Kyle's calling it a dub.
That's a dub. I'm calling it right now.
And you're right. It could be miles different from having Hackett as your head coach and going for a 60-yard plus field goal, right? Like, let's be honest. It could be completely different. The only thing I have somewhat of an issue with is or some of my doubts with is if Bo Nix starting in Seattle in your first game, tough. No matter how the team is. It's week 1. Both teams think they're going to win, and both teams think they're going to have a stellar season. It is a tough first week.
The negativity, the goddamn negativity. I don't need it.
Week two against Pittsburgh. They have an amazing defense with TJ Watt there. If the line can hold for the Denver Broncos at home, I think they can win their home opener, because right now the Steelers are somewhat in are we going with Russ or are we going with Justin Fields? Also, both of these guys, not very good last season. So if these are our options, okay, well then I guess we're going to put them out there. Week 3 at Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield and that defense going to be a tough go. At home, I think I give it a Tampa. And then the New York Jets, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, they have hype going around them, both offensively and defensively, how they've performed. Kyle, I'm sorry to say it.
If they
What?
do come out 4-1,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're here. It's they're
The Broncos?
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I like that their schedule is challenging but not impossible, if that makes sense. I like that
You're right.
going to Seattle and playing in a hostile environment, but they have a first-time head coach. I like that they come back home for their home opener. That's always gives you a good chance to win. Your home opener is special. I like week 3 that Tampa is going to be considered the favorite in that game, but it's also not impossible for Denver to get the win, because what this could do for a young team is build an immense amount of confidence. Say they start 3-0, that is going to be, oh, this is actually a good team. And then hopefully it doesn't get to their head, but you're right. Could they start like you're predicting 1-5?
1-1 Pittsburgh, 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. Then they go to then they come home to Vegas. I think they win that against Vegas. I think they start off the season 2-3.
Yeah, well, we haven't won that game in like 4 years.
That's also facts, but I think it could happen this year.
I do too. But yeah, I like that. I think we're gonna know right away what this is. And if they are able, let's say they're able to win those games, like Manning started with the Broncos 1-4. People forget he won his first game against the Steelers, then lost, and then in week 5, he's down 24-0 at halftime. Come back, wins that game, and doesn't lose another game for the rest of the season. So even if Bo Nix is 1-3, 1-4, but you're seeing improvement from him week to week, I wouldn't say that the playoff hopes are gone at that point.
I mean, we've seen teams start off terribly, but you could tell that there's been improvement in players. So again, hopefully that is the case for the Broncos, because they're my AFC team. I love them because you love them and we love each other. So that's why every time there's a Broncos game on, I root for them as hard as I would root for the Bears, unless they're playing the Bears, in which case the Bears are going to have an early lead and then squander it at the last quarter anyway. So it doesn't matter. But I'm not salty about it. But again, I hope the Broncos do have some sort of like Texans moment with Bo Nix, just completely outplaying any expectations, whether how low or how high they are, because it'd be awesome to see that team continue to be successful, because Russ left a big hole in their pockets, $85 million. You know, that's something that you look at when you're going into the trade deadline and being like, can we improve? I don't know if we can to the level that we want to, because we do have a huge hole in our pocket. So obviously that storyline for the Broncos is going to be huge. And also just the progression of Bo Nix and how well he's going to do is going to be something else, you know, kind of going into the season and throughout the season.
Yeah. And most people say Denver doesn't have a true number 1 wide receiver. It's like, what is Cortland Sutton? But not even diving into
That's
that
ridiculous.
thing, you just heard what the Packers Jordan Love said. He said, we don't need a number 1 wide receiver. It's going to be a different guy every single day. And that's a different philosophy too, where like, hey, we could have.
I don't love that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I don't mind it either, because let's say you're using a point system. Let's say you have one receiver that's a 10, that's Justin Jefferson, and then you have a 7, and then you have 3 5s. Okay, that's like, let's say you add all those points together. Now, let's say you have 5 8s instead. That's like, okay, we don't have that one guy, but collectively, we're better than the team that's got that one guy. And that's how I feel about Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims Jr., Josh Reynolds, Troy Franklin. It's like, sure, none of them are household names at this point, but these are all guys that are going to make an impact every single Sunday.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. All right, so we started with the Broncos. We mentioned the Chiefs earlier. Let's continue the AFC West State of the Union with the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs. some of the biggest offseason moves, all right? Just to kind of go over that. They signed their defensive coordinator, Spagnuolo, to a contract extension. There still aren't very many details on what that extension is. I tried looking. I didn't see anything. They re-signed Chris Jones, 5 years, almost $160 million. They traded L'Jarius Sneed, who was, next to McDuffie, a top cornerback duo. They signed wide receiver Hollywood Brown, and then, of course, they drafted Xavier Worthy and an offensive tackle, Kingsley Suamatea, to kind of take over for some of that offensive line problems. Those were some of the biggest offseason moves for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, coming
a huge one.
What is that?
Carson Wentz is the backup quarterback now.
Oh my God, you're so right. How could I have missed Carson fucking Wentz?
It's only a 1-year contract, so if things don't work out, the Chiefs will be free to move on at the end of the season. But it's worth noting that Carson Wentz is the backup now.
Carson Wentz is the backup, and what an important role he will play, because, hey, you never know. You might be in the same situation as Chad Henne. You might need to come in for a playoff game.
Yeah.
And you might need to have to win that game, or at least continue drives and score points on those games. So
Somebody's got to hold Patrick Mahomes' jockstrap.
Somebody's got to hold it. And Bill, I didn't see your tweet, but yeah, if you could tell us at the end, that'd be great. So off-season additions, and subtractions. Obviously with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, it gives the Chiefs those two speedsters that Tyreek Hill was, although not necessarily as elite as Tyreek Hill continues to be, if we're being honest. The biggest defensive things going on were the extension to Spags, Chris Jones being re-signed, L'Jarius Sneed being traded to the Titans, which, by the way, the Titans are sneaky good, but we'll obviously get into them later. What did you think about their offseason, additions, things like that?
I don't know what to make of it.
Okay.
Last year, I thought the Chiefs were a very underwhelming team. People forget. It's so easy. You win a Super Bowl, none of that other stuff matters anymore. But there were meltdowns happening in December. Games against the Raiders that they were losing at home, against a Raiders team that wasn't even playing for the playoffs. There was every reason to believe that the Chiefs would not beat the Bills in the playoffs. And
there was, you're right.
There was a lot of reason to believe that the Ravens would definitely beat the Chiefs. And there was sure of a hell of a good reason that you would have taken the 49ers to win that Super Bowl. Yet the Chiefs, in their experience, it pays off in the playoffs. Now the question is, are the Chiefs going to make it to the playoffs this year? Well, yeah, they're going to make it to the playoffs. And then once they're in the playoffs, will that experience catapult them to a Super Bowl? Probably. We're getting to that point. But if we're just looking at the offseason and we're just looking at this team, they're not that great. There's nothing about this team that's insane. Chris Jones is great. The defense was really good last year.
Yeah.
Offensively, I still think you're asking a lot to draft Xavier Worthy and just be like, okay, you need to be like Tyreek Hill. We haven't had that since Tyreek Hill, and you're really fast, so that'll work. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you get Henry Ruggs. Not every time you draft somebody really fast. Not saying that insensitively, but not every time you draft somebody that's really fast do they come in and make a huge difference. Look at the guy that was Josh. What was his name? He had the fastest combine before this record was broke. He was
yeah, he did nothing.
Yeah, he did absolutely nothing. So it doesn't always work like that. Then you got everything going on with Rashee Rice, who made comments about how he needs to mature, and that was all great and stuff. But then he said accidents happen, which it's like, that wasn't an accident, that was a mistake, but whatever. And then you see at running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets signed on a 1-year deal. So you're keeping him. You got Travis Kelce. It just feels like if they can have the big three, then they can overcome the deficiencies on the team, which they are there. It's not like they don't have them. They do have them, but most people, because they have Mahomes, because they have Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, are like, well, it doesn't really matter because they'll overcome. But they struggled to overcome last year a lot. And although it's easy to forget about it because once you're in the playoffs, you're in the playoffs, I do expect this Chiefs team to be laser focused this season, chasing something that has never been done before, winning 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Yep.
This is going to be what the Chiefs are practicing, playing, and studying for throughout the entire season. I expect that focus to pay off, but are the Chiefs beatable any given Sunday? Probably this year. I think they're not going to be what the Eagles were or the Cowboys were. This is a team that is vulnerable, and if they aren't clicking any given Sunday, anybody can beat them, including the Raiders, Week 17.
Wow. And you mentioned what was happening with Rashee Rice. So not only was it like that hit and run, he's gotten charges about assault in a Dallas nightclub. Not only him, his defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs accused of animal cruelty. He's got a court appearance this season. No. Harrison Butker gets criticized all over the internet for a college commencement speech about some troubling comments made about women, the LGBTQ community. Offensive lineman Morrison Godric arrested in Kansas for possession of marijuana. They have got this three-peat of a Super Bowl looming over their heads, immense pressure. I mean, if we're being honest, that's immense pressure. And you've got just like a flurry of players on your team that are just, I don't know, fucking up. You know what I mean? So they can potentially be the first team in the NFL to win 3 Super Bowls. They've got a week 1 matchup against the Ravens, and they've got all this stuff going on in the offseason. You got Travis Kelce asking all of his guys to put a load on him. Like, it is just a shit ton of things going on. So, like I said, I don't know, man. It's like the Chiefs are this team that are basically like a model for an NFL team going into any season with all this pressure. And then you got all this shit going on, right? Like Patrick Mahomes is like, oh, and his dad, Patrick Mahomes Sr., is like on his 3rd or 4th DUI. It's like, what is going on? Patrick Mahomes, Kelce, and Andy Reid are like, can you guys just fucking behave?
And his brother.
It's just like, can you fucking behave for 20 minutes, you pieces of shit? We are on the brink of possible NFL history, all-time history. And yet this is what's going on. I like you said, can they lose this season like any given Sunday? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know, man. It's always tough to say with the Chiefs because the last 5 seasons, all Mahomes seasons, pretty much, you go into the season expecting to make the playoffs. It was almost like the Patriots with Tom Brady. You were just like, all right, the regular season is kind of like biding our time before the playoffs get here, and we're gonna be in the playoffs. Like that is just what do you call it? Inevitable. It's inevitable for the Chiefs to be there. It's what you do in the playoffs. How can you continue to win at the clip you've been winning? That's the biggest question. So I don't know. For me, it's hard for me to doubt the Chiefs right now. It's been hard for me to doubt. And, if you watch our intro, I tell Kyle, I was like, beat the Chiefs.
Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, I will start believing.
And guess what? They beat them. and I started believing. So there's a lot of things going on with the Chiefs over the offseason. Again, it's hard for me to doubt these guys at any point during any part of the season or offseason.
Marquise Brown is the receiver that they added that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the same thing about the receiver group, but if that's what you're relying on It's like Marquise Brown hasn't played a full season healthy since 2021.
Yeah.
So I just be careful putting all your eggs into these baskets because
Rashee Rice is going to get suspended. That is like inevitable too.
and Rashee Rice is going to be suspended. So it's almost like when they were talking about the Jets on SportsCenter and they were saying, what are the expectations for the Jets? And they go, are we assuming that Mike Williams is healthy all year? And they're like, yeah. And I'm thinking in my head, but why? Mike Williams hasn't. That's not the way it works. Like if you like Joe Burrow, right? Are we going to predict that he's healthy? Yeah, I think you do. The position's different. The way he plays it different. But if you got a player that has been in the league for 9 years, 8 years, and every single season he deals with injuries, and now at post 30, you're 30 years old, you're gonna say, he's gonna be healthy all year. That would be the thing that would be least likely to happen. The most likely thing is that Mike Williams will deal with an ankle at some point, maybe a hamstring. He's gonna miss maybe 4 to 6 games.
I mean, look at what happened to Rodgers on that team.
What'd you say?
Look at what happened to Rodgers, 4th play of the season.
4th play of the season. So they know better than anyone. So, it's like you added Marquise Brown, you added a rookie, but okay, that you answered it on paper. We'll see if that actually, plays out the way they think. And that's why I'm not going to be like, oh, they solved their problems on paper, so therefore they solved their problems. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I think they solved it on paper, and now we wait and see. And confidence is about a 5 out of 10.
Oh, wow, Kyle. The Chief hate is real. So yeah, again, and like you said earlier, like they are definitely banking on the fact that Mahomes is Mahomes, Reed is Reed, and that Kelsey is going to do what he's been doing his entire career. Although, again, last season was one of those seasons where he did not have a very productive season. It seemed like he was struggling in most games. He was dropping a lot of passes, which was across the board a huge issue for the wide receiver room in Kansas City. So you're hoping that they fix those problems. Again, that Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, kind of comes in and can at least try to be wide receiver 1 while Rashee Rice is going to be suspended. Although with a guy like Mahomes, it might be like you were saying earlier. We don't necessarily have a number 1. We don't have a Justin Jefferson. And maybe Travis Kelce really is a tight end, is that guy. But wide receiver wise, we do not have a number 1. But I'm going to do my best to get these guys the balls. Although they tried that with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and they're continuing to try that with Tony, right? Is he still on the Chiefs? I forget if he is still on the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I think he is.
I think so.
Yeah. So again, if you're the Chiefs fans, you're like, we're gonna go for a 3-peat, but you are in the back of your head, at least in my mind, you're thinking, how are we gonna get to that 3-peat, right? Because it's gonna be a little difficult.
Definitely. And now moving on to the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders. Their offseason, I think the biggest thing is that they decided to stick with Antonio Pierce as the head coach. I thought that was a move that made sense for the Raiders, just based on how he performed since taking over. The cigars in the locker room. You can just tell when the players are responding to a guy, and they responded to the guy. It was his job to earn, and I think he earned it. So good on the Raiders for giving him a deal. Then Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, signs a 4-year, $110 million deal, 84 of it guaranteed to leave the Dolphins for the Raiders. Huge for the Raiders, because it means that finally somebody on the other side of Max Crosby is actually going to do something. Not on the other side, in the interior, which is going to benefit Crosby. And Wilkins is coming off a career season where he had 9 sacks, 23 quarterback hits. So the disruption from the inside is only going to free up Crosby, who had a career high 14.5 sacks last year. I think that move on its own is probably the single-handed biggest addition is adding Christian Wilkins. Now, they also added Gardner Minshew, and this is also potentially the biggest weakness, is that the Raiders signing Gardner Minshew to a 2-year, $25 million deal. While it's awesome that they have a vet quarterback with that experience to come in and compete with Aiden O'Connell, it's still two quarterbacks that you're not in love with. You would have rather the Raiders made a move for Justin Fields or something like that, somebody that gives you a little of excitement. But we've also seen Gardner Minshew take over multiple teams and keep them in the playoffs. He took over like week 4 last year, and he still threw for 3,305 yards with the Colts. So Gardner Minshew, you know what you're going to get. And if the team around him can be really good, Gardner Minshew can win you football games.
Yeah.
They added Alexander Mattison, and Madison is on the team, but they lose Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay Packers. Madison hasn't really established himself as an every down back. He had taken over for Dalvin Cook. Yeah, in fantasy wise, I know he was always getting 22, 24 points when he came in. So the Vikings were like, hey, this guy's really good. We're not going to pay Dalvin Cook. They make him the guy. And he didn't earn the every down back. I guess he wasn't a 3-down back last year. That's all I'm trying to say. So is he going to kind of get to where he was when he was taking over for Cook? Is that something that can happen? Is he going to be an upgrade over Josh Jacobs? No, probably not. Unless something clicks in him. And we have seen him play at that level, but for whatever reason, we didn't see that level of performance last year when they gave him the job and said, it's yours to lose. And he lost it in 1 year. So, I say that's like it's an addition, but it's addition by subtraction, with the subtraction being more valuable than the addition. And then they add Adam Butler on the defensive line. They added a center in Andre James. He was re-signed. He had been their starting center for the past 3 seasons. So they also signed the veteran lineman Cody Whitehair to get a guard, and he followed his old offensive coordinator Luke Getsy from Chicago to Vegas. So we'll see about that. We don't like Luke Getsy around here, so not sure that's going to be a big addition. Amir Abdullah was re-signed. He was the Raiders' backup running back, and he makes most of his plays in special teams. But overall, I think this is a rebuilding year for the Raiders. This is a season that is in between being is a bridge season. However, if Antonio Pierce can get the players to really play and that defense gets going, and Gardner Minshew is getting you 3,700 yards passing, and Madison is kind of what we saw in Minnesota before he took over for the full-time starting job, it seems like a lot of ifs, but there's not a scenario that's impossible. It could happen. The Raiders could be a good team with Antonio Pierce getting not only those guys on short notice, but now a whole offseason program, a whole kind of an opportunity to really change the culture, which he did right away. But lasting change takes more time than 1 week before a game. You need that offseason. You need those team bonding moments. And I think the Raiders have the head coach, but ultimately I think they're probably the team that it finishes 4th in the division.
Yeah, and it's tough to disagree with what you're saying, because one of the, we also have to acknowledge they drafted Brock Bowers, probably the best tight end in the draft. They brought in Jackson Powers Johnson, a guard. So they're shoring up their offensive line for whoever's QB week 1. And again, that's one of the biggest questions I think in the offseason is who is going to be QB1? Who is going to show out during the preseason? Is it Minshew or is it O'Connell? Because there were some things that like you liked about O'Connell last season, but then again, there was that game where it was like he completed 9 passes and they were all in the first quarter and then did not complete a pass from the first quarter until the end of the game, or from the start of the second till the end of the game, whatever it may be. The other one too is can Antonio Pierce continue the momentum from last season into this year? Like you said, they've had an entire offseason program, or they're going to have an entire offseason program with him as the head coach, him basically creating the culture. A lot of guys have bought into it. That's kind of what Antonio Pierce has got going for him, is that a lot of guys bought into it and a lot of guys stepped up and talked about him. Like Antonio Pierce is a guy that I believe in, but it also might be like he's better than the last guy. He's way better than Josh McDaniel. So
he could be as good as D'Amico Ryans, just missing CJ Stroud.
Possibly, right? You may just be a quarterback away. You've got Devontae Adams still there. Again, you've got a 2 tight end set that might be lethal, depending on, Mayer and Brock Bowers and how they incorporate them into the offensive game plan. He's, like you said, he might be D'Amico Ryans. He also might just be better than Josh McDaniels, and that's not necessarily that hard to do. Would I rather have Eberflus or Josh McDaniels?
Than Josh McDaniels.
I can be better than Josh McDaniels.
I can be better than Josh McDaniels.
Half these people who play Madden at some like expert level, top of the world Madden players are probably better than Josh McDaniels. Let's be honest, right? So it's like, what's that?
You said the top of the world Madden people. I said, that's me. Talking about me.
Guy wishes. So you're really hoping that momentum, continues to carry over into this season after all that being said. And with new GM Tom Telesco, because this is what's going to happen, right? Like the last GM, you could tell was like doing whatever Josh McDaniels wanted to do. Now, is there some how is he going to handle his veterans pretty much? How is he going to handle Devontae Adams? How is he going to handle a Max Crosby in terms of contracts, trading? And there's a lot to be said about Tom Telesco, about what he has been doing, right? They brought back him, and the owner, Mark Davis, brought back Antonio Pierce, really believing in him. So is that going to backfire on him? Because GMs, again, are very responsible for who they put in that head coaching position. So it's a lot of questions going into this. And like you said, this is going to be a very, very big rebuilding year. And I'm sure Devontae Adams hates to see this because he thought he was going to have Jimmy G and this offense that was going to be amazing under Josh McDaniels. So this may be something that during the season, Devontae Adams is like, hey, if you guys really need to trade someone on this team, please God, let it be me, because I want to go somewhere and I want to win. I want to win something with someone. And Devontae Adams is definitely a top tier wide receiver who is, and he's shown it with the Raiders, kind of at the end of his wits, trying to win, just trying to be in the playoffs, trying to win a Super Bowl. So you're hoping that, you can at least make this somewhat a promising season for a guy like Devontae Adams and everybody involved in the team.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. And now we go into the last team. Mm-hmm. And this is finally a last but not least situation. This is a team in the Chargers that have believed we have a top 5 quarterback. And if we have a top 5 quarterback, we could win the Super Bowl. But Staley was just a terrible coach. Let's be real. The guy was way in over his skis. He was clearly outmatched. If you look at the matchups, the head coaching matchups, he was getting outcoached every single weekend. Bad decisions, Madden type decisions, but not the elite Madden players that you were talking about earlier, like the bad Madden players. And then you bring in one of the greatest head coaches of all time in Jim Harbaugh, a guy that takes over wherever he goes, changes the culture and wins playoff games, goes to Super Bowls and wins national championships. That's all the guy does. And now we're supposed to believe that can't happen because the Chargers Charger, not a thing anymore. The identity has shifted. The Chargers haven't had a head coach as good as Jim Harbaugh ever. And they haven't had a quarterback since Phillip Rivers as good as the one they have right now. Yep. And you look at how good Jim Harbaugh was. And I had this pulled up here because I wanted to share this. Jim Harbaugh says his expectations for this team are really high. And he goes on to say, if you don't like that, you probably don't like to compete. And, we're going to compete here. But look at this. In 2011, his first year with the 49ers, he was 31st in the NFL in pass attempts. In 2012, 31st. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl. In 2013, 32nd in pass attempts. In 2014, 29th. Last year at Michigan, Harbaugh was 117th out of 130 qualifying teams in pass rate. Only 40% of snaps did they pass the football.
Yeah.
So even when Harbaugh was going to 3 NFC championship games and in Super Bowls, he still was 31st or dead last in passing attempts with Colin
Kaepernick.
Kaepernick at quarterback. So I look at that and I'm like, well, okay, well, they're definitely going to run the football. You look at their first round draft pick and you see that they're going physical tough when they drafted out of Notre Dame. Joe Alt. And Jim Harbaugh has never coached a team that could even sniff the talent Justin Herbert has.
Yeah.
And so he's done more with less. So for everybody saying that this is a total rebuild, you sent all their weapons and players away, I'm here to say that it doesn't matter.
Ooh.
It doesn't matter because they have Jim Harbaugh and they have enough talent on this team to be competitive. Are they going to win every single football game? No, they're not. But are they going to win more games than they lose? Absolutely.
Wow.
That is what happens when you bring in one of the few coaches that have as big of an impact on their team as Jim Harbaugh does. His players play for him in a way that is just different from even Sean Payton. There's something about Jim Harbaugh that the players really respond to, and all he does is win. And I expect the Chargers to be a team that is going to compete for the division.
Yeah, and we look at their schedule. Their first 4 games seem to be pretty favorable. They're going to be at home against Vegas. They're going to Carolina.
Dub.
They're going to Pittsburgh.
Dub.
And then they play Cincinnati or the Chiefs at home.
So that I was saying that when we broke down the schedule, that if the Chargers win that game, they'll be in first place in the AFC West.
Yeah.
That game is going to be huge because then it's like, well, there's the Harbaugh effect. Chargers are in first place and they're 4-0.
Yeah. Could you imagine going 4-0 and then going into your bye week, which is a little bit early, for my liking, a week 5 bye week kind of, I feel like sucks, right? Because
too late sucks.
Yeah. Because if you're building that momentum, you're Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, you don't want to stop that until you get stopped. You almost want to get stopped instead of being forced to not play another game the next week. And you mentioned a lot of what they lost this offseason. Keenan Allen to the Bears, released Mike Williams, didn't re-sign Austin Eckler. But you look at what they gained, right? Jim Harbaugh obviously is one of the biggest impacts, not only to this team, but to Justin Herbert. They brought in J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards was doing great work with the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins has just fallen into like season after season of injuries, which sucks because his rookie year was really, really promising. And then you go into their draft. They brought in Joe Alt, first round pick. They brought in Lan McConkey, one of the wide receivers in this past draft that was expected to go in the first round, and they got him in the second round. There was just so much talent in this draft that they were able to get him in the second round. And kind of a low-key draft, Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son. So
Let's
kind
go.
of low-key draft pick they got there was Brendan Rice. You know, you bring in these guys at wide receiver because you're hoping that Quentin Johnson and their fourth-year wide receiver, Joshua Palmer, can still be effective and not necessarily put so much pressure on these wide receivers to work out. You know, you can look at like Brendan Rice and Ladd McConkey as hopefully they have some sort of Puka Nacua type of thing where you have an established wide receiver there, whether it's Palmer or Quentin Johnson in this case, and you could kind of be that guy that is low-key getting a shit ton of receptions, getting yards, getting touchdowns, and eventually halfway through the season, everybody's like, these guys are doing really, really well. Like they've got something special in LA.
Yeah. You're going to find out how bad Staley was right away.
Yeah, especially in the decision-making department. So again, you know, while they were able to lose quite a bit, you know, they brought in some impact people or people who they hope are going to impact right away.
Will Dissly, tight end.
Will Dissly, tight end, who because they lost Gerald Everett to the Bears actually.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards. You're hoping that, you know, Dissly, he's been in the league for a bit, I believe, so I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact, but you're hoping he could do something. You're hoping no matter what the tight end room looks like, you're hoping he could bring that veteran leadership to that and, you know, at least contribute in a way that is helpful to Herbert and the team as a whole. So the other biggest addition that we kind of we were criticizing a bit, Greg Roman is our offensive coordinator. This guy made who was it? Lamar Jackson pretty damn good in his first couple of years in the NFL. The other thing he does really well is establish a run game very, very well.
Go figure.
Yeah. So he establishes a run game really well. He fucked up in the Ravens after a while, and they, you know, John Harbaugh got rid of him, and it's funny. He goes to the next Harbaugh.
Yeah, and Gus Edwards too. And it's like, you think, brother, they're close. They're close. Mm-hmm. His brother definitely was like, hey, what's up with Gus Edwards? And Gus Edwards coming off his best season he's ever had. He's only 28 years old. He's always been a rotational guy, never starter. But I'm sure that Harbaugh was like, this. Which one? John, I'm sure told Jim, hey, this is a guy that, because at the end of the day, you want your brother to succeed. He's not in your conference.
Nah, fuck him.
He's not in the conference.
He is in the conference. He's not in the division.
He calls for advice on a player, I'm pretty sure that they'll give it to each other.
Nah, fuck that. I want to win.
No, they both want to win. That's not what I'm saying.
Hey, any little advantage you can get over your brother, dude. Why not? You're both. Hey, if all goes well for both of these Harbaughs, they'll meet in the AFC Championship game. Don't you want to have that edge over your brother? Like it's a competition.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna say there's been stories of them like beating the shit out of each other, even as adult men, because of football and just competition in general. So I don't know, man. I don't know if they're going to be like giving each other like little things here or there.
They both can do their own evaluation at a very high level. So
and they know they're football guys.
Yeah, they know. I mean, he just watches the film, but yeah, Harbaugh's going to implement his offense, and it's kind of a mystery because we know that he loves to run the football, but with Herbert back there, it would be almost a waste to have this conservative kind of Teddy Bridgewater offense where you're just like, we'll just run the football and that'll open up some of the pass. So I'm excited. I hope, I don't know, like as a Broncos fan, I don't really consider the Chargers a real threat.
Yeah.
I do now, but it's still exciting to see this division kind of come to life.
Yeah, it's getting exciting, especially like when I look at like the NFC North, for example. Last year, the Packers were a huge surprise. And really when, you know, you were expecting the Vikings to be good, then Kirk Cousins went out. And now this year, after all the additions, after what the Lions did, it's like, oh shit, this division is actually an interesting one to watch. You look
Yeah.
at the AFC North, you look at the quarterback situation, you look at the head coach situation, you look at how successful they've been in recent years, and you're like, that's an exciting division to watch. So I think with the additions of not only Jim Harbaugh, but you got Sean Payton, you got Andy Reid. We'll see what Antonio Pierce is, but you got the quarterbacks in there as well. And you're hoping Bo Nix is going to be that next guy up pretty much in the division. This is another division to watch, I think, in the future where it's going to be super exciting, and kind of how we talked about the AFC West 3 years ago, where we were like, this is the division to watch. This is going to be the toughest division. They brought in Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Jimmy G, like all this stuff. I think for the AFC West in a couple of years, it's going to be the same way, especially with all the hype around a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and I mean, Easton Stick is a guy that can take you to the promised land. If Easton Stick goes out there and he outperforms Justin Herbert, then Easton, I mean, there's a reason the Chargers re-signed Easton Stick.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we'll see if Herbert...
Kyle wants Easton Stick to be the starter so bad, and he's like, hey, did you want to, trade us Herbert or something? All right, so to cap off the AFC West, Kyle, you and I are about to do our predictions for the AFC West. Since this is your division, I'm going to let you go last. I'm going to go first here. All right, so all that being said, the State of the Union as it is today for the AFC West, in fourth place, last in the division, I've got the Raiders. I've got the Raiders coming in last place. Again, there's a lot of things you're looking at you hope will happen. And I mean, the hopium is the highest milligram right now it is in Las Vegas. Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, whatever Antonio Pierce did last year, those are the things you're looking at as positives. Max Crosby, of course, and the adding of Christian Wilkins. The quarterback play is going to be very questionable. You hope Gardner Minshew does what he does, but that is yet to be seen. At third, in the AFC West, I've got the Broncos, Kyle. I've got the Broncos in third place in the division. Kyle's going to walk away. Again, there's a lot of hopium too for the Broncos, and I'm going to be there with you, Kyle. I'm going to hope the Broncos do amazing week in, week out, no matter who they're playing. With Bo Nix, with the subtractions, with hoping that guys stay healthy. It's a lot. It's a lot for Sean Payton. Sean Payton looks great. And the team looks very, very hopeful. I just don't think they can outplay the Chiefs and the Chargers. At number two, I've got the Los Angeles Chargers. I've got the LA Chargers. They've got an established quarterback. They lost a shit ton of weapons. Don't get me wrong. That wide receiver room is going to be suspect until one of these guys steps up or a couple of these guys step up. The defense, I think, is still going to be good. You got a lot of guys coming back. Bosa, Khalil Mack. What's their safety's name or their other guy's name?
Oh,
really?
Yeah, the best. Derwin James.
You still got them there, right? You bring in Joe Alt, to protect Justin Herbert. You bring in Jim Harbaugh. They still don't have enough to dethrone the Chiefs by any means whatsoever. So I still got them in second. And of course, until you prove me wrong, until you show me that you can beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win the division for the 8th year in a row or something like that. The Chiefs are going to continue their dominance on the AFC West and win the division in 2024.
All right. Well, we agree on fourth. I do think the Raiders are the team that comes in at number 4. And I want to say this too. So 1, 2, and 3 I think are going to be within 2 football games. So
Ooh.
I don't think it's like, oh, that you got that team third. Third might be a playoff team in this division this year.
Wow.
So I have 2 teams winning 10 games, 1 team winning 9, and the Raiders winning 7. That's what seems pretty realistic for me right now.
Okay.
I think the Chargers are going to end up winning the division this year.
Whoa, shit. What? There's no way you're serious right now.
It kills me to say it.
Wow.
But I think the Chargers are going to, because we saw what the Chiefs look like last year. So I don't think there's this huge gap. The Chargers were a playoff team just 2 years ago under Staley. Herbert was hurt all year last year, so we didn't really get to even see the Chargers last year. But I think that week 4 game, I think the Chargers are going to win that game, and they're going to take first place of the division. They might lose it at one point, but I think by Thanksgiving, they can hold on to it. Meaningful football game coming down the road.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs are going to be that team that wins double-digit games or 9, but they're going to go into the playoffs. And I would take the Chiefs to beat the Chargers in the playoffs, even if the Chargers are number 1, because experience.
Yeah.
And I think Denver is going to be in the mix. I have them winning 9 games. They won 8 last year. I think it's fair to add 1 football game to a team that has a much better roster. And I would not be surprised if they win 2 more football games, putting them into a 10-7 group. But if you have 3 teams that all have 10 wins, that tells you that not one of those teams is really going to have 13 or 14. So that's how it works, because the teams play each other and they take turns beating each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have 3 10-win teams. But with that said, you're not going to have that 13, 12-win team. And I don't think there's a team in this division that's going to win that many football games anyway.
Wow.
So it makes sense to me that we have 3 teams battling for the playoffs down to the wire. But I think we're going to see really how good Herbert is under Jim Harbaugh. And I think it's going to be really fast and immediate.
Wow. Kyle's calling the Chargers. I'm
going
going
here too with
that?
The Texans. Like, we saw what CJ Stroud and a really good head coach, we saw what difference that can make. They still have Bosa as the defense. They still have Derwin James. They still have the cornerback that got 3 interceptions in the playoff game against the Jags, Asante Samuel Jr. They have more players than we remember, because last year was an abysmal. But this year is going to be, the Chargers could be this year's Texans. It could be right away an immediate thing. And yeah, the Chargers are here and they're going to compete this year. I got them at 1, Chiefs 2, Broncos 3, Raiders 4.
That's crazy. That is crazy. You really hate the Chiefs. Bill gifted a membership. Let's go. And it went to a Cesar Blanco. He was trying to get KC. We appreciated it anyway, Bill. And KC said, hey, the thought was nice. KC, you were close. We were close. But appreciate that, Bill. Thank you so much. Another membership added to the Only Football fam. We've gotten at least one person signed up for the membership every stream we've done, which is insane. Yeah. That's insane. Since we started memberships, we've at least gotten one person.
We officially have more members, Only Football fam members, than the Chiefs will have wins next year.
Kyle's calling it right now. Kyle has got the Chargers winning the AFC West, followed by the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Raiders. I've got Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders. So go
I
ahead.
did have one last thing before we move off of this.
All right, let's go.
I have the win projections for the AFC West, and the way this is done is they put together like 5,000 simulations, and out comes from the computer. So here's how we read these win projections. So using the 53-man rosters as of May 14th, they ran 150,000 simulations on all 272 regular season games. These are highly advanced computers. I think quantum technology. This is what, I'm not even kidding. This is what sports books use to make their lines, and that's why it's always like, oh man, I'll take
Pretty
it.
damn close.
I'll take the over on points to be like 214, and I'll be under at 213. I'm like, how is it that close?
How is this possible?
These computers can solve problems that would take humans their whole life in seconds. So here we go. So the Chiefs were at 10.9 wins. So I had them winning 10 games. Right now, the over-under and Caesar Sportsbook Casino is 11.5 wins for the Chiefs. The simulation has the under. I have the under. I think they win 10 games this season. They might even flirt with 9, but I think they'll get double digit. Then you have the Chargers, and the Chargers, interestingly enough, right? The Jaguars have 8.4 wins projected. The Chargers have 8.2, and the over/under is 9 wins on Caesar. Caesar's draft book. So they're saying that the Chargers are going to win more than the simulation, just like the Chiefs were at 11.5. So these simulations are right where I was saying. You got 10 wins, the 8.2. I think that they're going to get 9 or 10. And then you have the Raiders at 6.4 wins, and Caesar has them at 6.5. And then the Broncos are the second worst team in the NFL according to the simulations, where it has Denver winning 5.7 games. If the Broncos don't win 6 football games this season, I will do something so awful.
Don't say it. Oh no, what are you gonna do?
I will.
Here we go.
I need time to think about it.
While you think about it.
Yeah,
are you going to
do something crazy? Because I'm telling you right now, Denver will not win less than 6 games. It will. There's no scenario where Sean Payton puts together a 5-win season. So I don't really care about what they're saying here. It's not going to happen. There's no way. The Patriots are the only worst team at 5.3.
That's insane.
The Titans have a higher than the Broncos, which the Titans have sneakily put together a season. But no, the Broncos are not the 31st team in the NFL. I can't get behind that.
I did see a lot of articles saying that the Broncos were going to be one of the top 5 teams in worst records. I don't know if they're better than 8 wins, but I am hopeful. I hope, and I'm going to cheer. Whatever crazy thing you're going to do, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to hear about this, because it's got to be preseason. You do that. You say this, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, it's going to be something really drastic. I'll do something. I'll even do something. I'll do this. If the Broncos don't win 6 games this season,
here we go.
I will donate $200 to Tom Grassi's charity, whatever one that he's running towards the end of the season, probably to St. Jude. Yeah. I will donate $200 to his foundation.
I don't know. No. You said something crazy. It's got to be something crazy.
That's good. Crazy. I don't have $200.
That's a good thing, though. You got to think of something crazy. You got to think of something crazy like I did when I said I wasn't wearing any Bears gear until they win 5 games. And I've stuck true to it. You got to do something like that because you got to show your team that you are not happy with what is going on in the organization.
I'll write a letter to Sean Payton. I will send it to the Broncos front office.
I am going to write or type a strongly worded letter.
Look, you know what? I'm going to write a letter. Dear Mr. I am a white woman.
We got 2.5 months for you to come up with something. And by the way, KC becomes a part of the Only Football fam. Let's go, KC. And he's already
a member.
He said I might as well join the club officially. KC, thank you so much for joining. And he's already got a proposition for you, Kyle. He said wear a Chiefs cap.
But that would mean I would have to buy one.
What? Yeah, KC. But okay. So if you were to do this, maybe you could buy like a cheap one off eBay or something.
But then what do I do with it? I can't have that in my room.
You have to, Kyle. You have to.
What if KC's on my stuff?
Oh God. So we got to come up with something like this because
okay. I got it. Oh my God. If the Broncos don't win 6 games this season,
here we go.
I will frame a Mahomes jersey and have it in the backdrop for the entire season.
Oh, the entire 2025 season?
Yes.
Oh my God. Kyle's gonna go fucking crazy. If the Broncos don't win 6 games, he is going to frame a Mahomes jersey. Oh my fucking God. Casey said that'll work.
I will also.
Oh my God.
I will also, because that's like a long-term punishment. I'll also add in a short-term punishment. I will remake.
Wow.
Jackson Mahomes' TikTok. I will do his whatever he does as a humiliation ritual. I will do that as well.
Oh my God. Wow. I love it. I fucking love it. Fucking love it. I almost want to cheer against the Broncos now.
Dude, that's messed up.
I almost want to cheer against the Broncos.
That's not okay. And Bill wants to know what the Giants are under. So I was on the AFC, so let me.
He said that Vegas had them at 6.5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Bill, I think I got to go under. I think I got to go under. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bill.
6.5. That's where it's at right now. 6.5.
What do you got, Kyle? Over, under?
For the Giants, give me a second. Over.
Oh, you're going over. Okay. What do you think over then? What number? What number are you giving?
8.
Oh, okay. 8-9. They finished the season 8-9. I mean, that's not.
I have teams getting I have the Vikings. I have my teams that I think are going to be less, and I have my teams that I think are going to be a little bit more. I think we're going a little too recency bias. It's all this. Yeah. It happens every year. I mean, they won a playoff game in Minnesota. The vibes were really good. Right now, the vibes are really bad. But do you have faith that Brian Daboll can turn this around? I think so. I think you do.
Oh, wow.
And I think Daniel Jones, maybe he's not the quarterback, but I think that Drew Lock could be. And Drew Lock would be the guy that comes in. So I could see Drew Lock carrying this team to at least 7 wins, something like that. 7 or 8.
Okay. All right. Well, that was us going into the odds for some teams, but overall, that was our AFC West State of the Union again. Kyle's got the Chargers winning the division. I've got the Chiefs winning the division again. So we're going to see how this goes. Stay tuned. Obviously, for the next couple months, we're going to be going over all of the other divisions as well. But this was the AFC West State of the Union. And Kyle, I think is it time for the motherfucking
Treat it like it's do or die. It's time for the chives.
Bring it, Bill.
Lie. I text you, but I didn't get a reply.
Oh.
Did you guys see that Tom Brady was indoctrinated? Or
enshrined?
Yeah.
Enshrined?
It's been a long day. He is in the Patriots Hall of Fame, and they had this whole thing where the team got together, and I think all of the greats, Rob Gronkowski, Randy Moss, they were all there. And Tom Brady had a speech where he went up and he talked about football, and he encouraged everybody to play football, basically.
Yeah.
He said football is really tough. And I'm paraphrasing here. He said football is like really tough. It's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. and go work out when you're sore, when your friends are at the beach. It's hard to have a game where you didn't do that well and you got to wake up early with a sore body just to attempt to get it right, and how there's so many lessons to be taught. And there was a couple things that I was going to touch on. First off, Jay-Z performed Brady's favorite pregame song live and in person.
Nice.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Hove.
H to the O-V. So that was pretty cool. Brady's family had time to reflect. It's been arguably most thoroughly covered. Tom Brady's been the most covered athlete in history, but the in-house team for the Patriots put together an emotional piece that featured Tom Brady's parents, Tom Sr., and his wife and 3 sisters. It was light at times, with his sisters identifying moments where he was pushed around by other kids in their Northern California neighborhood many years before he became the greatest quarterback to ever play. But the piece also helped lay the foundation for one of the most one of the themes of the night, when his parents recalled Brady's first trip to the Pro Bowl soon after he won his first Super Bowl. It was then that it became clear he felt he couldn't do everything he had once done with them. Suddenly, Tom Brady was famous. He was pulled in a variety of directions, and his time with his family was limited. It was a bittersweet moment for his parents as they looked back. The feeling felt reciprocated by Brady later in the night when he made his Hall of Fame induction acceptance speech. He's someone who clearly values the hundreds of relationships he's developed in Foxborough. Many of the people with whom those relationships have been built were staring back at him in person as he spoke on Wednesday night. And when he did acknowledge that, as was the case with his family in Hawaii in early 2002, he hasn't been able to give them all the attention he wishes he could. I wish I had more time, he said tearfully at the end of the night. And when I went to SEER school, we had a Navy SEAL instructor, and he kept running around screaming, "There's not enough time." And I didn't know what he was talking about, right? Then at the very end of the thing, he has this speech that's like tear jerking, because I thought he was just shouting that out to get us to move faster.
With it. Yeah.
Like, move faster, move your ass. There's not enough time. And I was like, okay, I've never heard that one before. And then at the end, he goes, I keep saying this because there's not enough time. He was talking about his life. He was like, there's not enough time to be a good husband. There's not enough time to be a good dad. There's not enough time to do these things. So what you do in your time has to matter. And Tom Brady saying this right here, like, I wish I had more time. I can't get that time back. When I was dedicated to football, I had to put all this stuff on pause, and I will never get those years back. Just like a parent that deploys for years away from their children.
Yeah.
And not comparing the NFL to a deployment, but in a way, it's the principle of missing valuable time with your family. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. So that was a major theme at this event. Randy Moss was brought to tears in perhaps one of the most unexpectedly emotional moments of the night. Randy Moss took the stage with some of Brady's best pass catchers from over the years, and he began to speak of Brady with Wes Welker, Rob Gronkowski, and Julian Edelman nearing by. The Gillette Stadium crowd erupted with a lengthy standing ovation. Moss moved to tears, eventually gathering himself to talk about what he recalled saying soon after arriving in Foxborough. "Put my locker beside Tom Brady's," Moss said, "and the rest will take care of itself."
Oh, yeah.
Belichick had a warm welcome.
Yep.
And the whole thing was just like, yeah, Belichick's gone, Brady's gone, the franchise is moving in a new direction, but this was kind of paying tribute to a team that was worth $750,000 when it was bought by Robert Kraft, and now worth billions of dollars, and they're one of the most successful franchises ever. It was only right that they kind of had their moment, and they got the respect. Tom Brady's gone. It's not like he's in Tampa. You wouldn't do this while he was still playing. Tom Brady took a year off, and now it's like, okay, before we officially turn this page, there's one thing we have to do. We need to have a night like this. And that's what happened today.
Yep.
It is hard. Some of the biggest cheers of the night came as a result of a pair of Robert Kraft announcements. "I promise tonight it will never be worn again."
Yeah.
The number 12 is officially retired. And I just got to say, could you imagine hearing that as a player? No one will ever wear the number you wore on that field ever again for the New England Patriots.
Well deserved.
That is called, yeah, that is, I mean, I think I speak for myself. I think a lot about legacy and what like, could I have any peace at the end of my life if I didn't leave something bigger than me behind? And the answer is no. So when I see other people get a piece of that, I'm like, man, that must be such a satisfying feeling. You know, like, okay, this is officially something that will live longer than me.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever wear that jersey. And who knows, you know, in 500 years, if the earth is still here, then there's going to be very fewer and fewer jerseys retired because you got to have teams.
Triple digits.
But 12 never to be worn again for the New England Patriots. It was a great moment. I encourage all of you to go watch the speeches. And what I was saying earlier, I do have here in words. I encourage everyone to play football for the simple reason that it's hard, Brady said. It's hard when you're young to wake up in the offseason at 6 a.m., go train and work out, knowing all your friends are sleeping in and eating pancakes. It's hard when you're on your way to practice, weighed down with all your gear, and it's 90 degrees out, and all the other kids are at the pool or the beach, and your body's already completely exhausted from workouts and two-a-days. It's hard to throw, catch, block, and tackle and hit kids that are way bigger than you and way more developed than you, only to go home bruised and battered and strained, but knowing that you have to show up again the next day just for a chance to try again. But understand this, life is hard. No matter who you are, there are bumps, hits, and bruises along the way. My advice is to prepare yourself. Football lessons teach us that success and achievement come from overcoming adversity, and that team accomplishments far exceed anyone's individual goals. Damn. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady right there, the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time.
Big ups to him. Bill has a story here saying, "I ordered a Plaxico jersey from eBay and shipping messed it up. It got sent to someone that lives 25 minutes from Gillette Stadium on the day Brady got inducted." Can you imagine the reaction from that Patriots fan that received a Plaxico jersey? I love it.
That is hilarious.
That is great. But no,
my chives and his chives were connected.
Exactly, right. It's great for Tom Brady. What he did in the Patriots, it was just elite, and the only player getting close to that right now is Patrick Mahomes. Who knows if that's going to happen? Whether it be on the same team, whether it be the same a similar career. It's just we know we lived in an era where we saw one of the best to ever do it, and possibly will ever do it. Obviously depending on how Mahomes and all these other quarterbacks coming up too. It's awesome to be able to be like, yeah, I watched Tom Brady play football when I was younger, and I was into football, and he was killing it there. But big ups to him. Very, very, very well deserved what he's done for football. And it's true, man. There's not enough time. There's not enough time to do everything in this world. But so that's why he said, make your time count, which is something that rings, I think, true for everybody listening to that for the first time or for the 100th time. It doesn't matter. It just rings true.
Yeah, and the Celtics are up 3-0 on the Mavericks. So next time we see you guys, the Boston Celtics may have won the NBA Finals pending a big comeback. So good vibes in Boston these last couple of days.
And the Florida Panthers are up 3-0 on the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup champions. Really?
Yeah, when I worked for Eastern Airlines, we chartered them to all their games for a year. It was a contract. It was a 1-year contract. But yeah, that they were not as good then, but they've been pretty good. I don't follow hockey like that, but I knew that they made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, they've been pretty good the last couple seasons. They're one win away from the Stanley Cup champions. But we are no time or wins away from our champions, the only football fam. Huge shout out right now to new members, KC, one of the guys who's been here for quite a while here on the Only Football podcast, always commenting, always tuning in. We also have Cesar Blanco, Angel, Perry King, Lil E, Houday Nation, Ian, that Dolphin fan, Clue, the Hurricane, Nash, who's in the chat right now, Jinja, our boy Tyler, brother T, Liam, the Steelers fan, Galadie's nuts. No, I'm just kidding. And of course, one of our biggest supporters since we started live streaming and everything really is Bill. One of our biggest supporters, Bill, has supported us almost every step of the way, always being here, being Kyle's Jamie when I was on deployments. And basically looking stuff up for him as he's talking on live streams. So always a big shout out to Bill.
Rick was busy taking Triacta.
Triactin. You dumb bitch.
Wow. You guys hear how he talks to me?
Triactin like a man.
I have no idea what he's talking about, but he's angry.
He's angry. So thank you guys to everyone who has become a member of the Only Football fam, who tunes in, comments. Please make sure to like the stream before you exit out of here, and go and follow us. Go and follow us on X. You could follow me at And Now Rick. You could follow the Only Football podcast at Only Football Pod. Kyle, where can they follow you on X?
I'm thinking you should, from now on, you can just tell them where to follow me.
Kyle, where can they follow you on X?
You can follow me at NFL.
You can follow Kyle at NFL with Kyle. Oh, wait, sorry. Hold on.
Top 5, no debating. Top 5.
Oh, man. That is exactly what I wanted to do.
So go follow Kyle at NFL with Kyle.
Top 5, no debating.
Okay.
Make sure to go follow our YouTube pages at
Please.
Yo, I'm Rick, and Kyle at Kyle Kitzman. He's doing wonderful things with the Denver Broncos community. So go make sure to check out his videos.
We need all the support we can get.
And of course, other than YouTube and X, go follow us on Twitch as well. And if you're new to the channel, become a member of the Only Football fam. Only $2.99 a month. It's awesome. You get some cool emojis. Yeah, we're gonna do some polls here soon for the Only Football fans. One of them being which division we should do the State of the Union next. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. And of course, you get a shout out at the end of every live stream. So hopefully you guys enjoy that.
Become a member. Do it. Do it right. If you want to, but keep in mind that the Only Football podcast assumes no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content of this site. The information contained in this site is provided by as an if basis, but no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness, especially nameliness. We don't have any of that, but we do have passion and hopium.
Hopium and copium. That's what we got here on the Only Football podcast. Thank you guys again so much for being on the stream tonight. And we will be back next week here on the Only Football podcast. But Kyle will be doing more interviews and we'll have other stuff planned in between these episodes here on the Only Football podcast. So go make sure to follow his YouTube. Kyle, always a good time, brother.
Always a good time.
So